Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sashi Radley. I'm an author. I'm a past life regression therapist and a soul numerologist and a face reader, along with all things intuitive development, etc. But I have written a novel, which is the first of a trilogy. The second book is well on the way, but this is the first in the series, Secret and Ritual, book 1 of the Ancient Power series. And I'm going to read you a little bit from the prologue just to give you an insight as to what it's about. I geared it towards young adult upwards, so there's some pretty interesting scenes in there, but there's nothing that is unsuitable for anybody from maybe 14 upwards, I would say, definitely from 16 upwards. So I'll read you a little prologue. Every cell of her being was screaming, no. Magda, sensible, practical Magda. Immobilized, gripped with blind panic, her mouth dry, her heart pounding. It was happening again, and she was powerless to stop it. Come on, Magda. You can trust me, honey, Polly pleaded. Just breathe into this paper bag. Slow it down. That's it, slow it down. I never realised they were so bad, Mags. Why the hell didn't you come to me before? Polly stroked her friend lovingly on her forearm, calming her, reassuring her. At last, Magda made eye contact. Her breathing now returning to normal, her flushed cheeks the only sign of her earlier distress. Because I'm bloody scared, Pols. That's why. She cast her gaze down at her bitten nails and shamefully tucked them tight into her palm. Of the two, Magda always seemed the strong one. Yet when these panic attacks kicked in, she was rendered helpless. They were getting worse and she knew she had to face her fears. Okay, Mags, I totally understand, but I can't bear to think you've been suffering like this. Come on, let me regress you. See if we can get to the root of all this. Let's clear it for good. Magda sighed as she scanned the cheerful interior of her friend's cosy cottage. Her eyes settled on a beautifully weaved wall hanging, depicting the Hindu goddess Lakshmi. Magda smiled to herself as she recalled being dragged through the dusty, spice-fragrance bazaars of Old Delhi on one of Polly's missions to find the perfect artifact. They were such opposites. The most unlikely of friends. She, Magda, was the logical, scientific one, and then there was Polly. Quirky, kind, loving Polly. Life was never dull around her. They had met 6 years earlier at the weekly gathering of the English Clairvoyant Association. Back then, Magda, studying psychology, was writing a thesis on types who believe in the paranormal. She'd gone along to suss out the oddballs she expected to find there, and thought the whole subject hilarious. With great amusement, she observed the eclectic bunch of budding psychics and clairvoyants who gathered to hone their skills. Magda did find it surprising that amongst them there was an archaeologist, a couple of nurses, a surveyor and a history teacher. You would think they would have more sense, she thought to herself. Polly exuded something different to the others, something it was hard to put your finger on. A wide-eyed young woman with an enigmatic face which seemed to smile without trying. Magda's initial description of Polly had been slightly ditzy, hippie chic, with a twist of Guinevere. Her university lecturer pointed out that by describing her cases in this way, she might not be cut out for a career as a psychologist. Magda had quickly warmed to Polly. Her infectious optimism helped to make her the one person who could challenge Magda's deep-rooted skepticism. Polly's random insights and premonitions had, against all rational explanation, often become true. It seemed they were destined to become great friends. Today, 6 years on, Magda had abandoned her unrealistic idea of becoming a psychologist. She was now a successful primary school teacher. She loved every minute of her job. Life was good. Then last month, something changed. The headmaster had asked her to be part of a team, taking the children on a 3-day history and marine biology field trip to Dorset. They were to start at the ancient hill fort of Badbury Rings, move on to Corfe Castle, and finish at Lulworth Cove on the coast. It sounded like fun. But every day since Magda had agreed to go, she'd been overwhelmed by debilitating panic attacks. The sound of Polly's voice pulled Magda back into the room. "Come on, Magda, now is the time to tackle this. A past life regression may get to the bottom of your panic attacks. I'll keep you safe, I promise." She placed her hand gently on top of her friend's. Immediately, a tingling sensation scattered like static electricity across the surface of Magda's skin. She pulled her fingers away quickly. Okay, Magda laughed. Her mood lifted. "You win, but I don't see how it will work. I don't believe in past life regression or past lives. When you die, you die." Polly grinned. "You will be the best possible subject because you don't believe." Not wanting her friend to change her mind, she finished, "Let's do it now." Polly made her way out of the cottage into the sunlit garden before Magda had the chance to refuse. Collecting her cup of peppermint tea from the table, Magda followed along the lightly overgrown path. Her bare legs brushed against the misty purple lavender which bordered the path, sending gentle wafts of fragrance to mingle with the warm summer air. Peppermint tea. Magda shook her head. "I don't even like it much." Under the canopy of a pale green magnolia tree at the far end of the garden, Polly waited patiently. She'd made herself comfortable, nestled within a pile of sumptuous cushions. The sun filtered gently through the leaves, dappling onto the ground. Bursts of light bounced off the sequins on the cheerfully coloured cushions. The striking tones of rich pink, tangerine and turquoise seemed much more in keeping with a scene from a Moroccan courtyard than an English country garden. Magda took her place beside her friend. With a sigh of resignation, she placed her cup down on a nearby tree stump. Then, stretching out on her back, she wriggled into the mound of colour. Secretly, she was imagining how pleasant it would be to have a little doze and just pretend to be cooperating. "No, you can't have a little snooze," just as if she had read her mind. Polly's amused tone interrupted Magda's train of thought and brought her abruptly back. "Prop yourself up with this," Polly smiled, tossing a bright turquoise bolster across to Magda. "I need you relaxed, but not asleep," she added firmly. "Come on, you may even enjoy this." Magda found herself doing exactly as she was told. She placed the bolster in front of the tree, creating a perfect makeshift armchair. Polly struck a match and lit a patchouli incense stick, then pushed its base into a patch of soft earth. As Magda closed her eyes, the sensual fragrance of the incense filled her nostrils. The aroma combined with a multitude of other scents hanging heavy in the warm summer air, lavender and rose interlaced with jasmine and rosemary. She found herself attempting to identify and separate the wonderful blend of fragrances. Magda loved this garden. It was a place to escape, the perfect tranquil haven. The sound of tinkling wind chimes, the gentle swishing of the leaves on the nearby weeping willow, and in the distance the relaxing sound of running water from the stream which bordered the garden was simply idyllic. "Bliss," sighed Magda. Polly started to speak. "Take a few deep, relaxing breaths." Magda found herself drifting off. "Fill your lungs with pure, fresh, white, healing light." Polly's words continued. Her voice had a firm but mellow quality, and despite herself, Magda was hanging on every word. She was still aware of the distant sounds of the garden, a blackbird singing, the faint hum of a lawnmower. Somehow even these sounds had taken on a soft and sedative quality. Weaved in between was the familiar voice of her friend resonating inside her head. Magda was being led to a place she was almost excited to go to. At the same time, She was battling with a strong reluctance and apprehension which had her in its grip. Deeper and deeper, Polly's voice was gently anaesthetising her. You find yourself in a familiar golden corridor. On each side of the corridor you notice an assortment of doorways. Allow your subconscious mind to guide you. Are any of the doorways pulling you towards them? Magda was so relaxed she could hardly form her words. Yes, she responded, I can see a small door, right at the end of the corridor. It's half the height of the others. She couldn't believe what she was seeing, but it was definitely there. Her body felt so heavy that it didn't seem to belong to her. The sound of the garden was fading into the distance, and on her inner screen, Magda found she was involuntarily moving along the golden corridor towards the tiny door at the end. A hollow echo mimicked each footstep. Polly's words broke through. Where do you find yourself? Magda slurred her response. I'm at the door. It's made of oak, I think. Very old and heavy. It has a sort of symbol carved on it. It looks like a capital M with a V underneath. Weird, I don't know what it means, but it is really familiar. She shivered. Her hand moved to shield her stomach as her solar plexus flooded with panic. Polly watched the expression on Magda's face change and knew immediately that she needed some reassurance. She spoke softly and moved closer. You are perfectly safe, Magda. I'm right here by your side. Take a deep breath, and on the count of 3, open the door and step through to the other side and close it firmly behind you. 1, 2, 3. Magda's hands trembled as she reached out and gripped the iron handle. Using all her strength, she twisted it anti-clockwise. With a harsh, grating sound, the door creaked slowly open. She swallowed hard, took a deep breath, ducked her head down, and stepped through the doorway. The door slammed shut behind her, and for a few moments she stood motionless, trying to gather her thoughts. It was all black, completely dark. A tingling shudder of ice-cold fear encompassed her. Then, echoing within her head, Polly's voice broke through very faintly. Look down at your feet, she whispered. What, if anything, are you wearing on them? Magda peered hard into the nothingness, trying to bring her vision into focus. I'm frightened, she rasped. I can't see anything. It's okay. The voice in her head was soft and reassuring. You are totally safe. Magda began sucking air deeply into her lungs to slow her rapid breathing. A damp, musty smell filtered into her nostrils. Gradually, a peep of light flickered under her squinting eyelids. She blinked hard to clear her vision. Licking her mouth to moisten it, her tongue came to rest on a gritty layer between lips and teeth. Again, the distant voice broke through. Are you male or female? What a ridiculous question, Magda thought, but she responded immediately. I'm a boy. As the words came out, she couldn't believe what she was saying. I am a boy. She repeated as the realization kicked in. Through blurred eyes, she observed the tanned and grubby bare feet of a young boy of about 11 years. The toenails were ingrained with dry, grey-brown earth. The skin cracked and hard. She knew instantly that she wasn't viewing this young man from a distance. She was experiencing him from within. She was this 11-year-old boy, looking out from behind his eyes. The breathing she could hear in her head was his breath. And that's the end of the prologue, which is a taster. And the next chapter, or the next part, is part 1, Secret. And I hope that's given you a little taster and an insight. The book is, as I said before, available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle form. And my website, if you're interested in reading any more about the work I do, is www.author-radley.co.uk. Thank you for listening.